Hey, what's going on everyone, Vasco here and welcome back to the channel. And in this video let's talk about everything that happened in the second Formula 1 preseason test at Bahrain and who I think has the advantage going into this week's Grand Prix. Let's do this. Okay, so I've got a few notes here from everything that happened during the test, so let's take a look at them together. So my first note tells me that Ferrari, Honda and Mercedes power units are about on the same performance and reliability level. Now it's very good to see three teams on about the same reliability level because these are the power units that we are going to expect to be powering the top performing teams. So it's very good to see them here on the top, and especially with the engine freeze as I mentioned, it's very good to see the power units on about the same level. Now when it comes to Renault and their power units, I'm a bit worried because this is the first year where they are going to work with that split turbo design that we have seen from Mercedes and Honda, but they don't seem to have the same level of either reliability or performance as the other top three engine manufacturers. Now this is very worrying because in about 4 years time Alpine really wants to be fighting for titles, and I just don't see them doing this with this kind of power unit, and I definitely think that this will be one of the power units that will receive the most reliability upgrades. So I'm a bit worried for Alpine, and this is kind of a trend that we will see throughout my testing review, but now let's talk about each one of the teams. Okay, so let's start with the two teams that I think performed the best by far in the preseason test, which were Ferrari and Red Bull. So Ferrari was the team that did the most laps during both preseason tests combined at a total of 778 laps. Now this is a huge number of laps that just tells you how reliable the Ferrari was. Now it's very good to see the Ferrari power unit finally be reliable enough and fast enough to compete with the Honda and the Mercedes. Now Ferrari looked to be the talk of the town, so when you ask every single team principal which team they thought was going to be the best this year, they all told you that Ferrari looked the best. Now Ferrari also looked very reliable, but most importantly their car looked very easy to drive, and they were able to complete every single preseason test program that they have set to achieve. So unlike teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, instead of introducing a major upgrade in this second testing, Ferrari actually stayed with the same car basically, just a few updates here and there on the floor to reduce porpoising, but Ferrari just kept with the same package and started learning how the car would perform, trying to reduce their porpoising issues, and I think that this just resulted in a much better package than they were expecting, and they have now a lot of knowledge on the car, and both drivers seems to be very comfortable. Now something that I also saw was that people standing trackside, so reporters and the Formula 1 technical staff, were also saying that the Ferrari looked very stable on corner, both on entry in the middle of the corner and on exit, and it was one of the cars that looked the best in low speed corners. So overall I think Ferrari have a very good package that is going to see them win a few races in 2022, if not fighting for the title. So they are a team that I am very hopeful for, because we have been missing Ferrari in the title fight over the last couple of years, and from what I have seen in preseason tests this year, this can be their year. Okay, and right alongside Ferrari we have the team that did the best time in testing with Max Verstappen, and that was Red Bull, of course. So Red Bull did 100 less laps than Ferrari with 678 laps, but just like Ferrari, they seem to keep about the same package from the first to the second test, and the Red Bull looked a very stable and fast package. So unlike some of my concerns that Red Bull had put all of their development time into 2021 and not focused on 2022, I was very worried for Red Bull, but they seem to have one of the best packages. Now again, the Honda power unit was very reliable, and the reason that they have less laps than Ferrari was because during the third day of the testing and in the middle of the second day, they introduced a very big upgrade package that really saw them gaining at the time and saw them solving a little bit of their porpoising issues, so the Red Bull looked like a very quick car. So I have a quote here from Ed Straw from the race, who tells us, "The Ferrari continues to look superbly poised and consistent on track. That doesn't mean it's outright the fastest, but suggests it's working well. The upgraded Red Bull continues to look good as well, both just respond well to what the driver is doing." So this for me means that both of the cars look very reliable, very easy to drive, and especially that Red Bull looks to have a very good edge on every single type of corner and on straight line speed. So I'm expecting that first stage of the season will be between Red Bull and Ferrari, as both teams look very good, and I must say that I'm honestly very impressed by what Red Bull is doing, because as I said, they focused a lot on the 2021 season, so it's amazing to see them bring one of the most innovative and fast packages to 2022 that just works well out of the box. And I think that one advantage that these two teams have over every single other team is that they seem to be controlling the porpoising better than any other team. So those were the teams that I'm expecting to be fighting for wins week in and week out at the beginning of the season. And just behind that little group, I expect to be McLaren and Mercedes. Taking a look at McLaren, they didn't have a good test, so in the total of the two tests, they did 567 laps, and even though they were one of the teams that was looking better when it came to porpoising in the Barcelona test, in the Bahrain test they had a lot of issues. McLaren did only 200 laps during the entire Bahrain testing during the 3 days, and they had a lot of struggles. So of course Daniel Ricciardo tested positive for COVID, which meant that Lando Norris had to drive the car for 8 hours every single day, and we cannot get the fatigue of the drivers out of the question, because if you're driving a Formula 1 car around the fast track just like Bahrain for 8 hours a day, the driver just gets more and more tired, and this is something that's definitely going to affect the effectiveness of the preseason testing. But McLaren also had a massive issue with their front left brake, so they had issues where the brake was overheating and not working, and there were a lot of instances where the McLaren was not able to brake into turn 1 and was just going ahead. And this meant that McLaren had to bring a lot of upgrades from the factory and fast track them in order to have enough parts to have the brakes working, but even then they couldn't have the car working properly. Now I think that this is a massive shame for McLaren, because when the car is working it seems to be one of the fastest on the grid, and I'm honestly very worried for them, because they had a package that, if not for these brake problems, I would say that would be fighting with the Ferrari and with the Red Bull. But given their issues and given the low amount of mileage that they did, I'm expecting for them to not know how the car is going to perform very well around Bahrain, and for them to have to tweak the setup ahead of the first race. Now right alongside them, I expect to be Mercedes. So Mercedes in the total of the two tests did 778 laps, so only 10 laps less than Ferrari. So they seem to have a very reliable power unit, which just bodes a very good sign for the team, because even if I don't think that their car is very good, they were able to do a lot of laps and gather a lot of data. So during the second test in Bahrain, Mercedes introduced a massive update package. Now I'm calling it almost a B-spec upgrade, because they changed the entire structure of the side pods, and now they have this zero side pod solution, which I've made an entire video about right here. But they have made this entire change to the side pods over the course of the testing, and this means that the Mercedes is now the car by far with the smallest side pods, and it's definitely a very interesting package that has the potential to be the car with the less drag on the grip. So in tracks like Monza, in tracks like Azerbaijan, where top speed is crucial, I'm expecting Mercedes to perform very well. But Mercedes also had their fair share of issues, so they had a car that was suffering from both oversteer and understeer. And even though the cars from this generation are very understeery, especially in low speed corners, the Mercedes look to be one of the worst. Now in most of their setups, Mercedes was also suffering for porpoising, so it looks to be a car that's not very easy to set up, and just like Mercedes from other years, this car looks to be a little bit of a diva. So Mercedes always builds a car that is very good when it's on that top range of the downforce and with that perfect setup, but their setup margin and their setup window seems to be very narrow, as with in other years. So it looks to be a car that will be very tricky to set up. And by the way that things looked in the testing, I'm not expecting Mercedes to be a race-winning package at the start of 2022. So I'm expecting them to lag a little bit behind both Ferrari and Red Bull, and also maybe McLaren, because once McLaren solve their brake issues, they may be able to surpass Mercedes. Now, I know that we say this each year, and it looks like every single year that Mercedes is only sandbagging, but this year I'm kind of worried for the team, because it doesn't look that they have got such a good grip on the package as they had in previous years. And we also have a quote from Lewis Hamilton that says that he doesn't think that this year it's just a matter of going to the factory and analyzing the data. They really need to work on the car if they are going to turn that car into a race-winning package, even though he thinks that the peak downforce is there. Okay, so those are the teams that I think are in contention to fight for the 2022 World Championship. So Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull and McLaren are the teams that I expect to be on top at the start of the season, but especially Ferrari and Red Bull are the ones I'm sure will be fighting for the title. So both McLaren and Mercedes have definitely the potential to reach that step, but they need to work a little bit on the cars. And personally, I'm very excited to have 4 teams with 4 completely different approaches to the car, fighting for the title and fighting for wins week in and week out. And I think that this just completely destroys any worries that we may have that the cars are going to look the same or that only one solution would work. And I think that we are going to have a very close grid, and in the end it's not all about the side pod performance, it's more about how the floor of the car performs. And I think that each of these 4 teams have what it takes to fight for the title. And I'm just very nostalgic because when I started watching Formula 1, it was always a McLaren-Ferrari title fight, and I'm honestly shaking with the potential of we having this that year again, especially because Ferrari and McLaren have my favorite driver lineups. Okay, so now going a little bit down the grid, I have Williams and Aston Martin. So over the course of the 2 tests, Aston Martin did 635 laps and Williams did 605. So they are one on top of the other when it comes to mileage, and I think that both of these teams seem to have a very good grip on the regulations, but they also have packages that I think need work. For Williams, I think that this is a major step up because for the first time in years, I think that they are going to be fighting with Aston Martin, but that they are going to be ahead of teams like Haas, Alpine and Alfa Romeo. So this is a major breakthrough for the cars. Williams seems to have a very interesting car, and even though the car caught on fire on the last day, this doesn't worry me a lot because their package looks very easy to drive and very good, and I cannot say the same for the Aston Martin. So the Aston Martin looked to be by far the trickiest car to drive on the grid, and looked to be a package that was suffering a lot from porpoising. So these are the teams that I think are going to be fighting at the top of the midfield, and these are the teams that are going to be fighting around that 8th, 9th, 10th place for the latter stages of the points, right after the top 4 teams that I've said previously. And once again, Aston Martin I think will stay on about the same place as last year, but Williams I think will make a major breakthrough, and if they can beat Aston Martin, I think that they will be in a very good spot in order to fight with the kinds of AlphaTauri and everything for the 5th place in the championship, somewhere around there, because I think that they have a package that looks very good. Now talking about AlphaTauri, over the both of the tests they did 679 laps, so once again just one more lap than Red Bull, and showing the reliability of that Honda power unit. And they seem to have about the same car design as Red Bull, so maybe a slightly less evolved version of the RB18. So I think that if they can tune this car, they will be fighting right alongside with Williams and Aston Martin, because they have got a very good power unit, their car looks very easy to drive, but I think we all saw that video from Pierre Gasly going up and down, and I think that their car is suffering massively from porpoising, and this is something that I'm very worried for. But these are the kind of 2 to 3 teams that I'm expecting to be fighting at the top of the midfield. Now when it comes to Alfa Romeo with 518 laps and Haas with 400 laps, I honestly don't know where to put them. So both teams had a very bad first test, and most of their laps actually came from the second test. But I think that they all have very good driver lineups, so Alfa Romeo with Valtteri Bottas and now Haas with Kevin Magnussen were both teams that surprised me a lot during the second testing. So both teams had much quieter tests than on the Barcelona test, which I think is a very good thing, because during the Barcelona tests both of the teams were having massive issues, but during these tests the car looks much better. Now they seem to improve a lot on their porpoising issues, and of course that when it comes to Haas we have to give them a little break, because they changed the driver 3 times during the test, so they had Pietro Fittipaldi, Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen. But I think that the team is going in absolutely the right direction. So Haas surprised me a lot and was my standout team during the testing, because they were able to collect a lot of data on their package, and seeing the Haas go on top of the timesheets was something that we didn't see in a long time. So Kevin Magnussen managed to be P1 in day 2 and Mick Schumacher managed to be P2 in day 3. And I know that these were during their extra running because of their delayed freight, but I just think that there's no way that Haas with their 2021 package or even with their 2020 package would have been able to do this, even with all the help in the world. So I think that Haas is in a very good position to improve their car and to have a car that will be fighting for points and not to be the last car in the standings. So I'm very excited for Haas. I think that they have got one of the most developed cars when it comes from a technical package. And now with the experience of Kevin Magnussen to help them tune that car, and with Mick Schumacher in his second year, I think that they're going to have a much better season than they otherwise would with their other driver lineup, and I'm very excited for the team. Now when it comes to Alfa Romeo, they also seem to have a very fast car, but they seem to have a car that needs a little bit of work, especially on the setup. But if they manage to achieve that, I think that they will be fighting for points. And you may be noticing that I'm missing one team. So when it comes to Alpine, they did 565 laps over the course of the two tests, and this was by far the lowest for a factory team, and this just worries me a lot. So Alpine don't seem to have the correlations working between what was going on in their wind tunnel, CFD, and the track, and they don't seem to have a package that's able to produce a lot of peak downforce. Now, even though Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon on a few occasions were able to put the car right around the middle of the top 10 of the timesheets, I'm not very hopeful for their performance in the beginning of 2022. So they don't seem to have a good grip on porpoising, they don't seem to have a very good grip on their power unit, and they don't seem to have a very good grip on their car. So I think that it's by far one of the most worrying combinations for me, especially because they are a manufacturer team which are aiming to fight for world championships, and I just think that they are going to be nowhere near that in the first races of the season, let alone the championship. So I'm very worried for Alpine. I expect them to be somewhere in the midfield, so I don't expect them to be last. I honestly don't know which team will be last, but I don't expect them to be fighting with the likes of Haas, with the likes of AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Williams, and they will be nowhere near the top cars such as the McLaren, the Mercedes, the Ferrari, or the Red Bull. So I'm not expecting good things for Alpine this year, and I'm very worried because I think that if their performances this year are not very good, they can be in risk of leaving Formula One, and this is something that I really don't want to see. So I just hope that both Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso just work together to see how they need to set up that car in order to extract the maximum performance from it, in order to achieve good results in the second stages of the season. But Alpine is by far the team that I think will have the slowest start to the 2022 season, and I'm very worried for them. Now, once they get the car working, I think that they can be on about the same downforce levels as maybe Alfa Romeo, Haas, or Aston Martin, but I don't expect them over the course of the 2022 season to achieve the same performance level as a team such as AlphaTauri or McLaren, because both of those teams already seem to have very good grips on their packages. And even if in the end Alpine has a better car than AlphaTauri, I think that the head start that teams such as Aston Martin or AlphaTauri will gain will be so big that there will be no way for Alpine to catch up. So for 2022 for me, it will be Ferrari and Red Bull fighting for the title with their great driver lineups, with McLaren and Mercedes just behind. And in the midfield we will have every single other team, so Williams and Haas finally on the midfield alongside Alfa Romeo, with AlphaTauri, Williams and Aston Martin also joining up. So I think that we will have a great season with just two groups, and once again I'm very worried for Alpine, but I'm very excited for what we are going to see up and down the grid this year. And that's been it really for my kind of recap mixed with the prediction for 2022. I know I already made my predictions for 2022 earlier, but this is kind of an updated prediction based on everything that we know from testing. And just a quick note, I created the Formula 1 Fantasy League on the Grid Rival app. They are not sponsoring this video, but I think it's good fun. So if you guys want to join, I will have a link in the description and in the pinned comment where you guys can join. We already have about 7 or 8 teams, so be sure to join before the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend starts so you can lock in your driver lineup and not miss on those early points, but you can join at any stage of the season if you are watching this afterwards. But in the meantime, that's been it for this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, you can check out my latest video right here on why the Mercedes is able to get away without having side pods. But in the meantime, that's been it for this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed and that you are very excited for the Bahrain Grand Prix. We are just very few days away and I'm very excited. So let me know what coverage you want to see from the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend. But in the meantime, that's been it for this video, and if you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So my goal for this season is to achieve 2,500 subscribers, so it would be amazing if you guys could share this video and help me hit that. But in the meantime, that's been it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you after the weekend. Goodbye!